news where I think Guilford County, where my granddaughter lives in Greensboro, North Carolina, 40,000 children had not accessed their schoolwork since they've been out of school. And if you think about it, they may only have one device in their home, and they may have poor connectivity like I do. And so I would be jagged, and you couldn't hear me clearly if I was at my home internet. So I'm hoping to get that fixed soon. As Crystal's bringing this up, I don't know if, there we go. That's a great view. Thank you, Crystal. I just called this sheltering in place with kids, and just put those characters like, oh my gosh, what is happening? I'm all of a sudden at home with the kids. And just for those of you that don't know me, I am a retired Extension Human Development Specialist from Virginia Tech, having also worked at North Carolina State University, and have been retired for almost 10 years maybe now from North Carolina, and about 7 years from Virginia Tech, or 6 years, I don't remember. Anyway, this is not what I plan to do in my retirement, and I'm sure it's not what you plan to do, staying at home. And so we're just going to move forward to the next slide and talk a little bit about what's going on. And I just hope that you can pick up at least one tip or pointer today. So I want to remind us to go back to the basics of human development. I know that you've thought about this, but I'm going to give you a quick overview again, just to think about this in terms of the pandemic. Maslow, we're going to talk about stages of moving through a disaster, and then the components of stress. So we're going to start first with Maslow, and there's my beautiful granddaughter also in the picture. As you recall, when Maslow talks about this triangle, the bottom is where we start as human beings. This is what we're seeking in our lives, is the top, to be self-actualized, to achieve our full potential. But where people are operating right now is at the bottom, fearful of where they're going to have enough, whether they're going to have enough groceries, and if they can pay their rent. And then the safety and security, the next tier up of, am I going to get this disease or this virus? Those people that are on the front lines, who are afraid they're going to get some germ and bring it home to their families. So remember, all of you, that no matter what stage of life that you're in, you're human. And that's what Maslow is talking about, is these bottom needs have to be fulfilled before we can move up the triangle. And so intimate relationships and friendships may be suffering right now, and the other subsequent ones, we're not even going to address those today. Everybody's operating more at the lower levels right now. So let's go to the next slide and talk a little bit about what happens after a disaster. I've used this slide many times in disasters like hurricanes and house fires and that kind of thing. What happens? Let's start with the heroic phase. This is a review for some of you, but this is the survival mode. Where people are very anxious, but the adrenaline is pumping through our bodies, and there's an immediacy. We have to handle things quickly. And when schools closed down, that was kind of like a real wake-up call, and all kinds of stress set in homes and in schools and in businesses, and people are going, oh my gosh, this is real. And so around here where I live, I'm on the director of the preschool board. We had to make some quick decisions about what to do for our families, what to do for our teachers to keep them somewhat paid. And they wanted to do something for their families, the families that they serve, of the preschoolers that they were teaching. Everybody was crossing each other in trying to be helpful. And we had to recognize that their adrenaline is pumping, and they're working really hard to try to do some immediate stuff. I think that we're a little bit beyond the heroic period. We're a little more settled down now. We're more in a honeymoon period where people are helping people still. They're reaching out and helping their neighbors, calling to check on each other, maybe even grocery shopping. I went to the store for these 3 little 80-year-old sisters that live up the street from me yesterday. They needed cat food for Putt and Raymond and their cats. And so I was going to the grocery store anyway, staying 6 feet away from everybody as best I could, and got the cat food, dropped it on their front porch, and they were bringing out this money to me, cash. and people aren't even dealing in cash right now. And it was like, I would have had to make change. I think it was a $10 or $20 bill. I couldn't see. I said, just don't worry about it. But many people in that era want to pay for what they got. And I said, just owe it to me. We'll get it later. Don't worry about it. I think the next period we're going to be entering into is reality. It's called the disillusionment period, where there are real hardships, and there is the potential for people to lash out. This is of concern to me with domestic violence, child abuse, and relationships. People are on top of people. It's kind of like the rats in a maze kind of syndrome, where people are having to shelter in place. They're closing down basketball courts and parks where people are going to try to get fresh air and spread out a little bit, because they feel like that's part of the spread of the pandemic and the germs. And I understand those decisions, but it is really going to cause some grief, some sadness, some hardships. I had to tell my 14-year-old granddaughter, who comes to stay with me every spring break, and it's Monday, that she can't come. She just can't come. We just can't risk it. And that's a hardship, and it's sad for us and sad for her, but it's reality. This disillusionment period could last for quite a while before we can enter into the reconstruction period. The disillusionment period, I think, in this pandemic will probably last through whenever we can move about again. In the reconstruction period, things may look different afterwards. Our world may change, as it did after 9/11. Things changed about how we are securing our airports and so forth. And we may have to redesign our ways of working and our ways of doing things. Children may have to go for a different vaccination once one is invented. Before they go back to school, they may have to be tested. There will be transition times to get back to normal. And we don't know how that will look yet. People can't know how that will look. And that's the hard part to explain to children. Okay, we're going to move to the next slide. I almost switched it on my computer. You have control, Crystal. Okay, so stress. Remember that there is a formula for stress. It's a function of duration, how long over time, and how intense the stressor is. So if you're at home and you have 6 kids and you have a 3-bedroom apartment, for example, that would be intense. But now the duration is being stressed out. So both of these things put together are the function of how your level of stress is. But we generally combine that with support systems. So we tell people to turn to their churches and turn to their support groups and turn to their friends and turn to exercise. And that's not available to us right now. And so the added difficulty is the unknown. When will things get back to normal? So stress is really peaking right now in many people's lives. And so we have to think about how we can help people alleviate their stress, even virtually. And we'll talk a bit about that, although that's not the focus of today's program. Let's move on. I interviewed some parents, and I have some quotes to share with you, and I wanted to start out with these, but anytime within the presentation following this slide that you see it in parentheses like these all are, that means a parent said that to me electronically. One parent said, I don't get a choice about staying home. My job, I have to go in regardless of the risk with little or no protection. That means they're a frontline worker. I'm terrified I will bring it home to them. Even more terrified as a healthcare worker, which this parent was, with a heart condition, that if I get the virus of having complications and maybe not make it, I'm scared to leave my kids without a mother. Now that's really scary. And you can tell the stress coming through in that person's comments. Please don't take your kids to the parks or play dates with other kids. You're part of the problem. That was another parent. And please stay home. Some of us can't. I would love to stay home and cuddle my kids and watch movies and plays. I don't get that option. I'm on the front line. I'm a respiratory therapist, and your actions directly impact your community. These are our words, real words from parents. Okay, let's go on. So what do children understand? I had one father who said, His 2-year-old daughter has a birthday in April. He said, I will be at her birthday party mid-April. Well, children 2 years old don't understand why they can't run up to you and give you a hug, or shouldn't. And who needs to be the responsible adult here? So is visiting making it better or worse? This child is not in that father's custody full time and not living under the same roof with him. And so changing environments or hugging, it just could put one or the other at risk. So how else can you connect? FaceTime, recording yourself reading a book, sharing photos, taking photos, texting. But with a 2-year-old, FaceTime's probably going to be the most concrete. Remember, they're concrete learners. They have to kind of see you. And that's difficult. Let's go on. So some of the main things we need to remember is safety and security. Go back to Maslow. Remember that for children, they need to feel safe and secure. On the right, that little schedule, that's the director of our preschool here at this church had her daughter make up her schedule when they got out of school. They couldn't go to school anymore. She said, you're going to have to make up your schedule. I don't think that everybody's schedule needs to be this detailed. That's amazing to me. But children certainly do need a routine, and it may be that you have to revisit that routine and revise it every other day or every week at least. But they need the regulation in their routine. The regulation of healthy practices is on this little girl's schedule. She's like, I think she's 10. Being outside, getting sunshine, and healthy eating are part of those healthy practices. And so being careful to incorporate those, even if it's sitting on your own porch or sitting in a window and looking out the window. With us all in each other's faces and spaces, everybody needs alone time. And maybe families need to designate where their alone time will be. So tonight, mine's here on this couch. Tomorrow night, yours is over there in that window, in the beanbag chair. Or mine alone time's always here at the kitchen table after 6 o'clock after we eat, or, where is your alone time? And then family meetings. Don't forget that is a good way to regroup your family, to sit everybody down and go, okay, let's talk about how your day went, but let's talk about how we need to regroup for tomorrow. It may happen that these family meetings are every day, every other day, or it could be once a week, or just once ever. But it is a regrouping time, and it is important for everybody to be heard, that it's not just a time to badger each other. It's not just a time to lay down rules, but for also to listen to each other as adults, for us to listen to children's perspective. I asked my 14-year-old granddaughter yesterday, I said, okay, you and your mom and your 1-year-old baby brother are all together there. What do you do when you and your mom get on each other's nerves? She said, just quit talking. I said, what, because you've been told to quit talking? She said, no, it's just best not to say anything, which I thought was cute, but she may be right. That's her coping mechanism, and that's fine. Let's move on. Okay, so remember that adults have reactions and children have different reactions than adults. So adults may be having a hard time sleeping, focusing, feeling drained, arguing, being sad, which I've gone through many of these myself. I'll tell my husband, I'm just in my gut, I feel like I want to cry. And so these patterns of eating and sleeping are really important to pay attention to as adults, but also how to get adult interaction into your life. It may be a friend you haven't talked to in a long time, or your neighbor you want to check on. It's just that adult interaction may be important as well. How are children feeling? They could be acting out, and that's your worst nightmare, I know. They could be having nightmares. They could be relapsing in their early learned behaviors, whether it's toileting or thumb sucking or crying or whining. I had one parent that was telling me that their 10-year-old is just off the charts in behavior right now. Limiting media exposure, I think, goes for adults as well as children. I had to realize that myself. I can't wake up with the morning news every day anymore. It was stressing my whole day. And so we have to quit listening every once in a while. Have a family plan. Children need to know that you have a plan, that you're in charge, and that you're going to do the best you can for your family. That makes them feel safe and secure. So figure out what that plan is even if it's a day at a time or moment by moment, but communicate that you have a plan for this with your children, that once things get back to normal, don't make them promises you can't keep, but certainly once things get back to normal, our family will get back to normal and we will go places again like we used to. Older children versus younger children have different kinds of reactions. They are certainly missing out on their peer-to-peer interactions, and that's a little more taxing than young children who are loving the adult interaction. Let's move on. So who's watching the kids right now? Parents, grandparents. Some child cares are still open and some people are patchworking. Here is a quote from a parent. Childcare for us to work is a problem. We have no one in our family that can watch them due to the age of them, or I guess us, distance, or health issues right now. So we're scrambling, swapping days, and depending on my 13-year-old to watch the kids for 12 hours a day at a time. We both have to be at work. It's not optimal, but I'm not given the option to not go in because they're a healthcare worker and they're afraid that they'll lose their job if they don't go in. And so those are some criteria where you see I've marked on the slide that we don't have a support system in place, and that's a protective factor. And now we've got a kid in charge 12 hours a day of younger children. Let's move on. Talk to some other parents. In fact, this is one of the families that I talked to, and the mom is an office manager and she is working home with these 4 children. The father is it's one of those businesses where you clean up after someone's house fire, clean up after a disaster. They go in and they do reconstruction, I guess, and drying out and so forth. These are not all her quotes. I just put their picture up here. But some of the other parents said, my husband and I are still working. We don't have any choice. We have now working opposite days, but it's limited our time together and puts stress on our children and so forth. Their schedules are overlapping. In the yellow, I'm most stressed about bringing the virus home. And then below it, my 14-year-old is perpetually sad and lonely. She has to watch the little kids while I work from home. And then money insecurity being the problem in the short term. Will we have enough to divert from our living expenses to avoid shutoffs like electricity and so forth? Moving on. So social distancing. I watched a little interview yesterday with Angela Wiley. She's the department head in Human Development at Auburn State University. And she said, let's reframe it. Let's call it physical distancing and social relationships, because we need each other. We also need our space away from each other, but we need, as humans, social relationships. Let's call it physical distancing, which I kind of liked that. One parent said, get creative. Go back to when things were more simple and enjoying the little things in life, like family game nights, outdoor play, letter writing, and family dinner table time. And those would be recommendations I would make to you, is let the kids write letters to people that you love, are close to, but are not able to see right now. Teach them how to address an envelope. Going outside for fresh air and sunshine is critical, but you can't go to a public park and you can't play with other kids. And that's hard to explain to kids right now, is everybody's kind of germy right now. Family dinner table time, it may be a blessing that we are able to now have some time to cook together and to sit down at the dinner table together. And I hope that's happening, because that's a good habit no matter what's going on in life. Let's go on. So transitions with school agers and teens, they're missing out on social interactions. And I say especially because peers become so important to them. And so allowing them to, there are some children's messenger sites. I'm on one with my 11-year-old niece that initiated a conversation with me yesterday. I think it was new to her because she didn't have a lot to say. Adolescents who have added responsibility for their siblings, high schoolers who are totally missing their prom and graduation and all of that. I'm thinking maybe a virtual prom, maybe host that here or through Zoom. I'm thinking that maybe other people might want to do that as well. Zoom's free for 30 minutes. And even if there are middle school graduations, that could be virtual perhaps, or you can celebrate that at home. Certainly afterwards you can celebrate. There's no sporting events yet. The pressure to do things is gone. There's no outings and gatherings and birthday parties. So you don't have to rush around taking your kids to soccer practice and all of this sort of thing. So you've got like this balancing act of, okay, we can't do that, but at the same time, okay, well, I don't have to do that, so I don't have that pressure. Marriages, and I know there's going to be another session about marriages, trying to figure out how to still have dates with your spouse and realizing how people are being maybe snappy with each other with their temperaments and just stopping and going, okay, that's the COVID talking, that's not me, I'm sorry, and being able to apologize. And when will we be able to transition back to normal, and what will our new normal look like, are all concerns. Let's get on with looking at some of the strategies. If you're working at home, settling into the new schedule, and I think after 2 weeks, remember it takes 21 days to form a habit, that's the old rule. It's been about 21 days for a lot of people, and so people are starting to find their new rhythm, their new schedule, and adjusting. One parent said 2 weeks at home was challenging, but now they seem to have found their balance. Having a plan for the day, work plan and child plan. I know that Crystal has her kids at home and they're having to come up with a plan just so she can be online with us today. One parent said, I downloaded ABC Mouse for her like 2.5, 3-year-old and signed her up so she has homework to do as well as the big kids in her household. That was the picture of the family I showed you. And she also said that working during rest time, that the nap time for the littles is quiet time for the bigs. So she has a 2-ish hour of window undisturbed where she can catch on her work tasks. So they've planned for the day that this time will be my time undisturbed. One parent did not, I heard this somewhere, is that asking a friend to watch their child outside from a distance during a critical meeting might be another strategy. And signs and symbols when you're engaged. I know here, even in my church, I put a sign on the door that says, I'm in an online meeting. You've got to tell the people in your household if you're in an online meeting, and put a sign on your chair or something. And you may want to think about limiting that time so it doesn't happen all throughout the day, but you try to crunch it into like a 2-hour window during the morning, and you're going to have to just tell your people that you meet with that that's how it is. Knowing your child's vibes. So if morning's a better time for the kid to be on their own and do their own thing and play at a table, then maybe you can let that be the time that you have your meetings. Another parent just said, you know, laughing often and finding the humor in things. And I think she even added like a child who had a conniption fit over spaghetti or something. So we will keep going. Well, I never wanted to homeschool my kids. There was an article in the New York Times. This PowerPoint will be online. You can look at this later, but being at home doesn't mean you're the teacher. You're just overseeing that the work gets done. You're really the facilitator. You don't have to be the teacher. Be sure they know how to access their lessons and hopefully have a way. I know schools are checking out computers and internet is difficult for some people, but if I'm talking to you and you do have the way, then that's your role here, is to be know that you're guiding them and facilitating the process. Ask them to share their accomplishments each evening for at least 5 minutes. Really listen to them during that time and look at their work. Get them to share it with you. If you need to connect with the teacher by text or email, certainly do that. I know teachers miss the kids too, and they miss the interaction. And a lot of them have driven through neighborhoods and waved at the kids and put out signs, we miss you. And I think that's another human connection, people needing people. And that's part of that whole honeymoon phase. Allowing kids to connect with friends, even virtually. And then again, being outside together. Lessons don't always have to take place inside at a kitchen table. It can take place in many places. So let's move on. Age-appropriate information is what I wanted to talk about on this slide, but then I backed up and put the first bullet is you got to take care of yourself first. You listen to me here, and you've got to take care of yourself. You've got to breathe, you've got to exercise, you've got to eat healthy so you can be healthy for your kids up here as well as in your heart and in your whole body. So you've got to take care of yourself first. Help children feel in control, like they are making some of the decisions about their lifetime, whether it's planning menus or, wearing their pajamas all day, but let children feel in control of some of their life. Don't try to control everything. Making their own schedule, like that one slide I showed you, and then reevaluating it from day to day, and taking the lead on some things that you don't need to take the lead on. So how are you going to keep them busy? There is a multitude of resources out there. It's almost overwhelming. It was overwhelming for me when I was looking for some things to share with you. I'm going to share a few, but it is overwhelming. And as educators, some of you I know are, you don't want to overwhelm the people that you're trying to be supportive of with resources. So find a good one and give it to them one at a time. I'm going to also share with you a handout about some basics developmentally and show you some good links as well. Here's one idea that actually Crystal and I were talking about it and planning for this session is preschool children have centers at school and their daycare, and they understand what that means to move from place to place to place to place to do learning centers. And so because they rotate through activities already, maybe you want to think about that at home, is to do daily assignment cards, and it will look different for a early elementary. I think this would not go up into the adolescents are self-guiding themselves, hopefully by now, doing their work on their own, and the teenagers as well. But I'm going to show you some sample cards. It's just an idea for possibly doing at home. And I'll do that later. It's not this slide. Another parent said, being outside, it's therapeutic. There are therapeutic benefits to being outdoors. There's being lots of outside time. That's another, these are all in italics, so that means a parent said them, lots of outside time, get creative, and burn some energy. So inside time is productive. So just remember there are things that you can do outside, just a few suggestions on the right-hand side of this slide. But fresh air and sunshine is supposed to be good for the virus if someone had it anyway, but there are therapeutic benefits because of the fresh air. There are many, many studies that support green in our health and being, and even in hyperactivity. So be outside when you can. Here are a few of the links that I found, and I must admit that a lot of these came from Child Trends recommendations. Brain Pop has a lot of aspects to it, and it's a video with activities and games for children. And then these other ones that are linked, I'm not going to open these, I'm not going to discuss them, but they're here and they're vetted, and so you may want to explore them on your own. Some references for to use. Okay, notice the URL on these is cooperative extension ext.vt.edu. Go back to basics again. The preschooler one, the school age one, I wrote those a long time ago, but they're basic information about what preschoolers are like and what they expect and what they developmentally can understand. Like, they're not concrete thinkers. I mean, they are concrete thinkers. They're not abstract thinkers yet. School agers, what to expect from them, and then the publication on stress. So don't forget to pull those up and share them with each other. The CDC certainly has messages for how to talk with kids about the coronavirus, as does 0 to 3. Kids may be asking, why are people wearing masks? Why are people covering their faces? All of these, 0 to 3 is a very dependable website. There is a Nickelodeon special on tonight that Kristen Bell is doing. It's a kid's eye view about the virus, and so there's a link here to the story about what's going to be aired tonight, but you may want to tune into that later. The library, if you don't know about the Libby, and there's a few other ones where you can then interface your local library's name with this app called Libby, and I can't remember what the other one's called. Some of you might know, and I'm not monitoring chat like I was told you I would do. I'm sorry, Crystal, but if you know the name of it, you can put it in the chat box, and we'll look at those in a minute. There is also one called archive.org. I just learned about it, didn't get it on the slide. The book on the right of the places you'll go was one that we read yesterday online to record, but we were able to find the book, link to it in archive.org, and you can borrow books and put them back. I don't guess you put it, I don't know if you put them back or not. It's just another free site, and libraries are getting creative in your community, so you may want to look at what they're doing, but there are online ways to access books. Because our kids are online so much time, we do need to give them a break from being online. And you need a break as well because of eye strain. And this, especially for second, third graders, this is an increase in online time that they didn't have in their preschool years. In the first grade years, it was more like daycare. And so this increase in eye strain also causes kids to think they can't see well, and it causes kids to go to the eye doctor more, which they can't do right now. So look at their eye strain. And then, yeah, I'm going to go to the handouts next, and then that would be the next slide. So this handout, this is just page 1. I just put a picture of it. And on the column on the left, I'm going to have fine motor, active play, and science and nature, literature and language. All of those go all the way down the handout, and then across the top are the ages: infants, toddlers, preschoolers. And so what you can remember is appropriate for each of these ages, and it will help you with the next activity I'm going to show you as well. This is that centers of learning in your home idea. I just made this up, and so it's adapted. It doesn't matter to me. It's just an idea. So the first column says basket or box. Find a basket or a box and show the child this card. So that picture of the basket would be when you give the child, say, 2 or 3 cards in the morning, it might be a picture of the basket, it might be a picture of the window, and they know they've got to rotate to those centers during the day. So you would change the basket activity each day, and I'm suggesting like rocks they can color, or your old jewelry they can go through, or maybe it's a sorting of a junk drawer, or maybe it's cars and tracks, or Legos, or nuts and bolts, or puzzle pieces, lids and sorting. Anything you can put in your basket or box would be that center, and you change it out. And if it seems to be going well, leave it in a couple of days. The next one might be window. So it'd be by the window, anything you can observe out the window. So you might talk to them about looking at the birds, counting the birds, doing weather charting, and you may have to be a little more helpful for the younger kids on that, give them a little more guidance. And someone else suggested trays of spices they can smell, and that can be in the basket activity. Bird feeder filling, might have a fish in the window. Whatever you put in the window, that's their activity for that day. And so the next one, I think I shared another couple of slides on the table. Maybe that's another center of learning, is you've given them a basket and then they rotate over to the window and then they rotate to the table. On the table might be more messy activities. Maybe you've got a cookie sheet and you've laid out some Play-Doh or some sponges and painting and paper or cookie cutters. So there's some suggestions here, but you can also reference that previous handout for some other ideas of things to do. And so I'm just suggesting that this might be another way to organize your day, is with centers of learning right there in your own home. I wanted to bring a close and allow for some questions. So this is, I think, my next to last slide. So remember Mr. Rogers, what a great guy. He said, when I was a boy and I'd see scary things in the news, my mother would say, look for the helpers. You always find people who are helping. And so that's good advice for us right now. Wanted to leave you with a couple of good quotes. In a time of crisis, losing your head is a good way to become the crisis. Or maybe it did take a crisis to know yourself. Maybe you needed to get whacked hard by life before you understand what you wanted out of it. Or this one, it's written in Chinese. The word crisis is composed of two characters, one representing danger and the other that represents opportunity. And the last quote, sometimes you need a little crisis to get your adrenaline flowing and help you realize your potential. And so just wanted to leave you with a couple of quotes there that you can think about and ponder later in your own time. All right, I'm going to pause there and let Crystal decide how we're opening this up for questions.
Thank you so much for sharing that information. I was actually jotting down notes myself as you were talking. So at this point, we would like to receive questions that people have, starting in the chat box. So if you have questions you would like to pose or something you'd like to hear a little bit more about, please post those in the chat box and I will monitor those.
And I see that Karen said, I'm thinking that's Karen Tanner perhaps, that Hoopla is another library app online. And yeah, that's another one. So there's several of those where you can check out books. Sometimes you're on a waiting list though. You have to realize that's part of that process.
So as people are thinking of questions that they might have, a couple of things came to mind. The visual for your family that you're on a webinar. So to your point, so I've decided a large vase that blocks the doorway to this room is what I put up, and that's the visual for my family. But my youngest child is 8. So I don't have a toddler or a preschooler who may or may not adhere to that, but doing the visual. And I appreciate you coming back and saying you have to take it away when you're done, because it will quickly lose its effectiveness if you leave it up the whole time.
Leave me alone all day.
It's not going to last very long. So Karen,
I was going to say it can be it can be overwhelming to get too many ideas at once, and that's why I just kind of stopped there. I didn't want you, whoever, I don't know how many people we've got here, but there's a few ideas, and I think there's actually one more slide of me on that PowerPoint that just says, I hope you at least got one idea from today. And if you did, I would suggest you put that in the chat box. I would love to know what you think would be a good idea for your family or for people that you work with, from anything that I might have said. And Crystal, share that picture. I want them to see it. I was in Nassau. It was a cruise about 4 weeks ago. It was probably one of the last cruises that went out, and we were in a shop goofing around, and my friend took this picture of me posed up against this feathery headdress. So if you got an idea, if you could share it with me on the chat, that helps me know that if this was helpful, or maybe you didn't get any ideas, and that's okay too. But it's good to see you. I'm looking at your names. I see Katrina and Karen and Terry and Claire.
So I am one of those that's at home with a college student, a middle schooler, and a 3-year-old, and both of us are teleworking. This is Karen Tanner, by the way. And so I'm in and out of the office some, but for the most part, it's been a crazy balance. And so we have found that kind of identifying like when the key Zoom sessions that I need to be on, or a conference call that my husband needs to be on, and balancing it with my college students' crazy schedule, just so that we all are kind of aware of what each day looks like has really been helpful. So we spend the evening kind of just taking 5 minutes to say, I've got this going on at this time. Can somebody wake up and make sure that he gets outside at this time in the morning, or he has some chance to kind of run and tumble. We also make sure that our lunchtime, so in a little bit around noon, we kind of all regather and have our kind of lunch together, which really helps. And then we take a walk to get that 3-year-old worn out so that we have downtime with him. So once he's got what we say chill time, he doesn't always fall asleep, but it's going to be with one of the other siblings that just involves the books and the quiet activities. And we find that taking the dogs on a walk and getting out has definitely gotten him ready for that chill time.
How old is he now?
He is 3. So he'll be 4 in May. So he's pushing that. But with his older siblings, he thinks he's, about 10. And so his personality is very large, and he is very much my completely active boy that just wants to dig, wants to be in the mud. And that's just not the way I've rolled with my other 2. So it's an interesting dynamic that he's thrown into the family.
I've heard of other families using lunchtime as the regrouping time as well. And that may, again, become our norm for the next few weeks, months, or whatever. But that's seems to be a good family time to regroup. Thank you for sharing. I'm reading the chat box now. I'm looking at Claire said she doesn't have any children here, but I guess it was about 6 weeks ago, I had she'll be 2 in April, my 2-year-old granddaughter that was on that very first slide, had her for a week, and I thought I was going to lose my mind. I haven't had a toddler in my household for a long, long time. And I had to dig out the table and dig out the puzzles and dig out my ideas. And I was busy absolutely all day long. And so I have sympathy for those with toddlers in the household. But I think going outside is definitely a blessing. This child never took a nap either, so that was kind of crazy. Some people like the center idea. See, Katrina, I use Katrina's name, but Crystal, that's something that maybe someone can take that idea and expand on it and turn that into something bigger and better. It's just a seed of an idea, but go with it.
Yeah, I really like that. Karen said, this is Karen again. I love it. I might have to spend some time focusing on that and use my elementary school head, preschool head, and see what we can do.
Yeah, I'd love to see them, share them back. If you get them all ironed out and fixed up, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we should have that conversation within our human development team, because I'm seeing a lot in the chat that's going to be really helpful. And even though I have older, I don't have preschoolers and toddlers, I have a 3rd and 5th grader, but next week they're going to actually have spring break. So their school immediately started remote schooling with only 1 day off once school has closed. So they've been going hard and heavy since schools closed without a break. So the school decided they're actually going to have spring break next week, but I don't have spring break off. I'm still working, but there's no swim camp that they would have been able to go to. So I'm going to implement sensors based on this presentation. So I love the idea of putting out the cards to help guide. I was already thinking about stations and centers and putting stuff around, but I love the cards, adding that component to it to give it some direction.
And scavenger hunts, don't forget scavenger hunts. You can do different scavenger hunt every day. When I was a first job out of school, I was a teacher's aide in an elementary school, and she had shower curtain rings, like the little metal shower curtain rings. And these cards she had laminated, they were cardboard. I mean, you could make them on cardboard, and hole punched them. And she would lace them for her students. They were elementary school special ed kids, and they had to go and do these tasks based on what cards she put on the ring that day.
I have the scavenger hunts and actually have used those. So I will share those scavenger hunts. I do have those that are like a nature one. There's an inside house one. I think the challenge with the cards is that we need to make sure that it's everyday household items for materials, because people aren't going to be able to have access to go and purchase some things that they might have for the activity. So I think if we just put on that hat that we need to do everyday items that people may or may have very easy access to, and keep it along those lines. I think that can be really successful. But I will definitely scavenger hunt
Another
nature's
idea.
bathroom house ones.
Have you seen the art museum one where there's this a great art piece and then people are trying to use their household items to pose just like the painting? It is hilarious, but that would be fun for like school agers to do. It's almost like a dress up activity.
No, that's awesome. I'll have to look.
That sounds fun. I'll share on the scavenger hunt idea. You'd have to probably have readers or adapt this if your children aren't readers, but on the scavenger hunt idea. So my daughters and their two best friends started to call these scavenger hunt things an escape room. And just prior to everything shutting down, we had their two besties with us for the weekend when their parents were out of town. So they did something, they called it an escape room. This is what they called it, but they wrote clues. And like we would do for a scavenger hunt. So they wrote clues all around, throughout the house. And the prize was just that you got to the end, right? There wasn't a big, something there. It was just that you got there. So because they're a little bit older, they range from 8 to 11 in age, they could write the clues. So that took some time and some effort and some creativity and some skills that they thought through the clues, wrote the clues, cut and pasted it. So if you're thinking about something that might also, give a little extra time, skills, energy, something to do, and then, they paired up. But however you might implement that, that seems to be all the rage. So much so that one of these girls is having a birthday next week. And so we're gonna do a virtual escape room. And so her mom is gonna place the clues all around and she's gonna have people on a Google Hangout give the clues while her daughter goes through the house with the phone and, finds the clues. So anyway, they call it an escape room. It's a scavenger hunt, but for whatever reason with kids these days, escape room is what they're calling it.
That's cool. Claire had a good comment on that, that she has an idea on that. I remember when Whitney was little, she and her overnight friends, I'd give them each the Sunday newspaper ads. I don't get a newspaper anymore, but there might be a magazine, and I would do a list. I'd go through the magazine and quickly go, okay, there's a bicycle in there, there's a puppy, there's a pizza, and make a list of words for them, and then give them the magazine, give this other kid the magazine with their list of words, and they had to race to see which one could find all of those things, cut them out, and then come prove to me they had found them when they were done. And so that's another kind of looking for stuff activity.
Our neighborhood is teddy bear hunt central. So there are teddy bears and tons of windows. And so that's been kind of fun. And people keep updating on we've got like a neighborhood kind of, it's like an email, I guess, subscription to our neighborhood. And so people kind of keep posting like their address of where the new teddy bears go up. And then they're now actually leaving messages on their driveways. So that's kind of been carrying up. So people are walking around, there's messages, and they're painting their storm doors, and it's just kind of neat which is why we enjoy walking around the neighborhood, because there's something constantly going on and new and different.
That's great that neighborhoods are like that. I worry about, well, some of the apartment complexes, they're so close and all they have is their little balcony or their little porches, maybe where they can get fresh air, and they can't really get out and get that close to people. And so at least you can holler across your yard at someone if you're in a neighborhood. I saw the little grandfather and granddaughter dancing across the street from each other because he lived across the street from the family, and they're having a little dance off, and that was cute. And so it's nice when there is a semi-support system close by. So just remember all of that for people, and we've got to recreate what those support systems look like. Here at Smith Mountain Lake, we're trying to create the Smith Mountain Lake virtual community project where people can set up Zoom rooms to do things like fun, cooking and singing and painting, doing art workshops and such, just to connect with each other, to fabricate that human connection. I thank you all for inviting me to be with you. I sure have enjoyed it, and I'll do anything for you.
Well, we thank you for saying yes and for taking the time to pull the information together. I know from our other conversations, you are not sitting still. You have a lot going on in your space. So we thank you for taking the time to come and join us and share this information with us. It's always great to see you and glean from your expertise. I will share with those on the line. We are working to get the presentation and the materials up. We will look to have those up on the Extension website. But if you need or want that information beforehand, please send me an email. Those of you within Extension already know that. If you are not, I will put my email in the chat box. It's cmtyler@vt.edu. The other thing I want to make sure everyone is aware of is on behalf of Virginia Cooperative Extension and our Human Development Program team, we have now responded to the request for information, and we are identifying the series as a Balancing Life series. And so the next webinar coming up in this series is going to be on Friday, tomorrow at 10 a.m. And that will focus on working remotely, working and schooling remotely. So we'll hone in very specifically on some of those details around the specific schooling and working from home. And on the back end of that presentation, we'll have some things around Zoom. So what you might be able to learn and do and access via Zoom, since so many of us are either starting to work in that space or elevating what we're doing. So that's tomorrow. And there'll be a few snippets around teens, anxiety and stress, and marital relationships. But also next week, we're incredibly excited that on Wednesday at 10, we will have Dr. Megan Dolben-McNabb, who's the director of Virginia Tech's Marriage and Family Therapy Program, to come on and talk about marital relationships while people are, I like the notation of physical distancing, while people are physical distancing or sheltering in place together with the spouse. So Dr. Dolben-McNabb is going to be on presenting and doing a live Q&A for those questions, and we're going to solicit questions for that ahead of time as well. And then and that will be a Virginia and a North Carolina opportunity. And then next Friday, we have Balancing Life, Teens, Anxiety, and Stress. And we will have Dr. Kimberly Allen from NC State Extension coming on to lead that session for us. And we are going to host that via Zoom. And we're also going to host that via Facebook Live. The question around Facebook Live is if we do the Zoom and Facebook Live at the same time, or we make the Facebook Live session a little later. We're going to test the technology for that. But at any rate, look for those opportunities. All of them are and will be shared on the Virginia Cooperative Extension Facebook page. So if there is nothing further, I want to thank you all for your time, and thank you again, Dr. DeBord, for being with us today. Everyone take care of yourselves and enjoy this time.